So you're a new player looking to play Arknights, but you're struggling to start out since you don't know how everything functions or who to get and upgrade. While the only tutorials available are outdated and not as optimal for today's standard, well, you're in luck because I'm here to guide you through the basics and what to do in Arknights as a new player in 2025. At the start of the game, you should be greeted with a 5-star selector and a ticket to instantly promote any 5-star operator to E2. In this case, my advice is to get and upgrade operator Lappland. Lappland is a very versatile operator. Since she is a Lord Guard, she can be both a temporarily landholder in early stages, and can also deal damage to ranged units. And this is just her trait alone. She also has a talent that can inflict any enemies she hit with the silence debuff, which will lock enemies out of their skills. If you look at an enemy information, and you see this icon next to their skills, this indicates that this skill can be silenced. This talent is especially useful in stages where there are some very troublesome enemies that can be silenced, like these Originium spiders for example. Lappland can handle them very easily when compared to thorns. This is because her talents can remove the explosions caused upon their death, thus significantly reduce the damage she took during the encounter. Furthermore, her skill 2 is also very good since she will now deal arts damage to at most 2 enemies in her range. Very effective against high defense enemies such as this shield dude. So, to round up, we know that Lappland can both be a landholder in early stages, and can also deal with drones. She has a talent that can silence enemies out of their skills, which can be very valuable in some stages. And last but not least, her skill 2 deals good arts damage to at most 2 enemies within range. So, in conclusion, Lappland is a very versatile operator, and with the reasons above, you should have her be your first E2 operator. Now you might also notice there's another 5-star selector with only 4 options available and are wondering who to get. And in my opinion, Projekt Red is the best option. Liskarm and Silence are also very good options, but not really necessary and replaceable if what you need is a solid defender/medic. Now let's take a look at Projekt Red trait. What makes her unique compared to a typical operator is that she is an executor specialist. This archetype enjoys reduced redeployment cooldowns, so the general playstyle of this archetype is to pick off potential threats, provide temporarily support, and as bait for troublesome attacks. Her talent, allowing her to deal at least a certain amount of attack to an enemy despite their high defense, is also very good, considering her trait. Now let's talk about her skills. Her skill 1. This is her DPS skill. She will gain some attack, some physical and arts dodge for 10 seconds. This skill is best used for picking off potential threats, destroy obstacles, or assisting a troubled lane. For instance, I'm using red to destroy this crate right here, which is way more comfortable than placing units that's supposed to be stationary. And she can also deal with these jetpack dudes that appear out of nowhere, which could catch you off guard. Another example is when suddenly an enemy dropped down behind my operator. This is a potential threat since none of my stationary operators can hit him. However, with red, the task became relatively simple. Now let's talk about her skill 2, which is her crowd control skill. She will deal a certain amount of damage in a cross, while also stunning every enemy in said cross for 2 seconds. At first glance, this skill doesn't seem that appealing. A 2-second stun seems pretty mediocre for a crowd control skill. However, there's more than meets the eye, as there are 2 major use cases where this skill shines the most. The first one being the actual use case, which is crowd control. This skill, when combined with her trait being an executor, could provide a lot of support when there's a big horde of enemies. She can disrupt their marching forward, deal remarkable damage, while also stunning key enemies that could potentially cause trouble to your operators. All of this contributes to her teammate getting more time to deal with enemies without worrying about overcrowding and potentially leakage. And her second use cases could possibly be the most game-changing skill depending on the stages. This is the fact that her stun can cancel lethal heavy damage from bosses. This is extremely important since some bosses have the ability to straight up one-shot your operators with one of their attacks. Like for example, this boss has a charged up attack that can deal massive blows to your operators. But if you just stun him during his phase 1 like what I did here, his charged attacks is now cancelled and is back to dealing sustainable damage. Another instance is this hammer dude with an attack that can deal 10 Lappland damage to your operators, completely erasing them from existence. However, a simple stun from Projekt Red is enough to just deny the entire attack. The best part is the cycle for which this boss needs to be able to use his skills again perfectly aligns with Red's redeployment time, so you can just use Red to deny his hammer slam for the rest of the stages until he dies. Overall, Projekt Red's skill has a variety of use applications, and she also provides a level of comfort for you as a player since she's a fast redeploy unit, and can be deployed on any melee tile to handle unexpected danger, and handle enemies standing still in weird spots on the map. Furthermore, she's already very viable at E1, with most of her kits unlocked along with decent stats, making her a very newbie-friendly operator also. Everything above is the reason why I highly recommend you getting Projekt Red. Another advice I'd like to give, and this would apply to every new player, is that you need to level up your 3 stars operators. Not only they're substantially cheaper than other higher rarity operators, only costing you money, but the value they provide is undeniable. They're very comfortable to use at the time, and are going to last you for a lot of stages, until you saved up enough materials to start leveling up your 6 stars. Who should I level up, you ask? I'd say all of them. Maybe besides from Vanguards, since there's Myrtle, who I'm going to talk about later on. And if you're struggling with money at the moment, I suggest start leveling these operators first to E1 level 10 in this order: Cruz, Melanda, Encel, Stewart, Cardigan, Popuker and Hibiscus. Afterward you can slowly level up the rest accordingly. Also try to get their skill levels to as high as you can. Lastly, in this video there's one more operator I want to mention, and that is none other than Myrtle, arguably the best Vanguard in the game. She alone will help you progress through stages a lot easier without having to worry about DP. Her skill 1 is the best skill to use, and it generates a whopping 14 DP in a span of 8 seconds, with a 22 to 25 SP cost, which is insanely fast when compared to other Vanguards. Although please be careful when using her, since her archetype being a flag bearer, she will not attack, nor block enemies during her skill activation, and her stat alone isn't high. However, these are very minor inconveniences, since her only job is to generate DP, and leave the rest up to her teammates. Just think of her like those sunflowers in Plants vs. Zombies. Now there's 2 ways of getting her, the first being the more comfortable option, which is to buy her in the starter pack for $1, which is a pretty good deal if you ask me, or for a more free-to-play option. In the recruitment's job tag session, try to look for one of these tags, and match them with this healing tag. Set the timer to 9 hours and you'll be guaranteed to get Myrtle. This method will take some time and luck to pull off, so be patient. Now if you manage to get Myrtle, your main priority is to get her to E1 with her skills at level 7 if possible. In fact, once you do, you should keep her at E1 for vast majority of stages and only E2 her if you're planning on masteries. Past tutorials would encourage you to E2 your Myrtle, and that is completely true at that time since you need an E2 operators of your own to be able to borrow another E2 operators from other players. While Myrtle is a 4 star, so she's relatively cheap to E2. However, since you already had an E2 operator in the modern days, it's quite unnecessary to promote your Myrtle to E2 since, while she's cheap to promote, there's little to no benefits on her E2 unless you're planning to get masteries for her skill 1. And with this concludes your first squad. After this video your roster should be enough to tackle a good amount of stages and can advance comfortably for the time being. A few more tips I'd like to give is to subscribe to Kiostin for stage clearing guides, Frostbite to 6-2 for operators reviews, and Cookie Case for general Arknights contents. Also don't miss out on event stages and rewards since they're a good material/money booster for newbies. And with all that being said, I'll be heading out. Peace.